Yes, I can hear you now. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Is it okay? Is the video clear? Because I'm using my PC and
Yeah, no, it's super clear. I can see your painting behind you. I'm about to ask you about that. I can see everything. Hi, Richmond. My name's Dina, by the way. It's so nice to meet you.
hi Dina, nice to meet you.
Where are you
Yeah.
right now, by the way? What are you?
Currently I'm in Accra at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool, 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 cool. And I have to ask you about this painting behind you. Did you paint this yourself, or what's the
I
story?
wish I did. So it's my big cousin during the lockdown when we were at home, but and yeah, we just wanted to do something fun. So this is what she came up with. Yeah.
I love it. It looks just like Simba the Lion Cub from Lion King.
Yeah, so I just took it from her. I mean, she was like, I shouldn't take it anywhere because that's not her best art. But for me, I just love it because it makes the room cute. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love it too. Richmond, for those that are watching and haven't heard of you before or don't know what you do, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Richmond Ekow Barnes, but I love to be called Ekow, so Ekow Barnes is okay. But Richmond is my government name. Richmond is the name I used to get money, and so yeah.
Okay, I'll call
Um,
you Echo.
I'm a writer and a creative producer. The reason I call myself a creative producer is I kind of feel everyone can produce. Yeah, we all have that talent. We all have that um, mentality to put things together. But in terms of creativity, sometimes not everyone can be creative. Just like the way I can be a banker because I'm not very good with accounting. So when putting things together, trying to get work done every now and then when it comes to my work, it makes me like very creative because every now and then, whatever thing I put out there, whatever thing I get myself involved with, it is a creative process for me. So I tend to create and yeah, so I would call myself that. Yeah.
I love that. And honestly, we're going to talk about the brands that you've worked with and the projects you've worked on. And when we did a little bit of digging, I learned so much about you that I have to clarify. How did you get to this stage? Because I heard you used to be a model. Is this true? Are you still a model?
I'm still signed to my agency, yes, and I wouldn't say I'm still a model, but I think now I've evolved or I've emerged into more of like I heard this word influencer, but it's more like now I'm very strategic and most of the jobs now it comes my way is more like maybe brands trying to do like partnership or brand collaboration. So maybe let's say for instance, maybe Nike has some campaign that they were doing. They send like sneakers out there to some people to wear. I tend to wear that and maybe just get content for them. But fashion wise now, it's a bit like I'm now behind the scenes trying to what also give people the opportunity, also trying to what make everyone most of I mean the emerging ones their voice to be heard and all that. Because I also had the opportunity, someone really pulled me out there. So I also kind of feel this is my way also giving back. Yeah.
I love that. And how did we get here? So, did you always know you wanted to be a writer or a content producer, creative producer? How did this happen?
I think maybe your platform will be the first for me to say this. I think one way or the other, maybe it's something that I maybe never envisioned. But when I remember when I was in junior high school, I used to love reading a lot. So we had one of the subject, I mean English reading, where English teacher will always make us like read, and I always find the joy because the truth is I hate math so much. If you bring maths right now, you'll be my biggest enemy. So I was just reading like whenever they tell like people to read, let's say they'll give us like paragraph by paragraph, then they'll call you, then you read. So there was a time I just started reading, and my teacher was like, "Hey, you should try doing journalism." And the truth is, my mom, one way or the other, studied journalism in school and PR.
Yeah.
And then she went into banking before she moved to the States. So I used to see all that, but I never really paid much attention. But I'd always wanted to do PR. Yeah, because she did PR. So whenever I see her PR stuff, I was like, it was really very nice, like how they put things together. They get to, I mean, interact. But
Yeah.
in terms of me now coming this side, I think it was all by chance through modeling, because as a model, you get to meet editors, you get to work with fashion directors, you get to meet like literally everyone in the fashion industry. And it all started when I went to South Africa, I think my third season after Fashion Week. I was backstage and I saw the editor for GQ. So I like the way they were seated at front row and everything. It was like, I was, oh my God. I'm always on the stage doing this, but it's also nice seeing like they rush to the models with their notebook and something like taking pictures and all that bias. So like, it was really interesting. I started asking him questions. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And he was, oh yeah, I mean, as a model, you can't always be doing modeling. I mean, don't get me, modeling is good, but I get to a point. Modeling has some sort of age bracket. So even if you are evolving, unless maybe you tend to become a legend, if not care is not taken, you need to have a career from that. Aside modeling, because to me, I feel like modeling is basically like a hobby, no pun intended, because it's more like if you are really trained well, you can do it. But the talent, if you have a talent, what do you get? What do you use your talent for? You can be a model, but you can dance, you can speak, you can sing. That is your talent. Aside you being, that's why even with agencies, what they do is they are more of, they ask other curricular activities that you could do. So they add it to what? Your portfolio for other clients. So there are some jobs that they would want you to dance. There are some jobs that they would want you to wear some nerdy frames looking like what? A nerd. So when he said, I really said, I was like, wow, this is really, really like very true. So I came down to Ghana, and I mean, every year in October, we always go to Nigeria for Lagos Fashion Week. So that year when I saw the flyer, I was like, okay, this year I'm not going to do Fashion Week. What I'm going to do is I would rather go as, I don't know, I didn't even know what I was doing. Like, I'd rather go and just observe. But I did a whole 2x4 page where I wasn't really even sure. But to take you back, when I was in uni, my first year, and I mean second year, I had like my friends, like two good friends who have like their fashion brand. So I was in a way behind the scenes trying to, I used to send emails. I didn't even know I used to send emails to editors. Hey, can we get this online? Some yes, some no. So that during that period, I learned a little bit about pitching, but it wasn't really serious. So when I started pitching, I had some contacts. I remember I sent my first pitch out to the JK editor I met, and I was like, hey, I'm going to Nigeria and I would want to do a story. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about getting paid. So at the end of the day, yeah, I just want to go do a street style. And he's like, yeah, because I'd always seen on the news how writers, photographers go out there for Paris Fashion Week, London Fashion Week, and they get to cover it and all that. So I was like, okay, I also want to do the same thing in Africa, even if I'm not the one. So I mean, I did that, and it really came out great. I collaborated with a very good friend, Mel Latha. Thanks him so much. We went to Lagos together. We did it. I submitted, and that was my first byline. It wasn't a lot of article because I mean it was just street. So I used that byline to start pitching, because whenever you are pitching to editors, they would want to see what you've done before. So I reached out to Vogue Italia, and that's how everything. I met Sarah. Sarah has been very good, and she's such a great person. So Sarah started coaching me, and I was like, hey, I would want to do a story on Fashion Week for Lagos Fashion. And my first ever story, I think, was Arise. Yeah, I think it was Arise Fashion Week. So after doing Arise, I did my story on sustainable fashion, because that was one thing that I also wanted to be different, because I realized that everyone writes, but even if I'm going to be a culture writer, my writing should be a bit, if it's fashion, what do I want to focus on? Is it just solely beauty? Is it just style? So I was like, nah, I'm going to do all round, but the all round will be more focused on what sustainable fashion. So when I poached the idea to Vogue Italia, Sarah, she loved the idea. So I started doing stories on emerging, because I kind of love emerging talent, because I feel a lot of established brands, they know their ways and ins out, and some have PR team and all that, but most of these young ones, they don't know what they are doing. Not in a bad way, but like it's like they are so lost because some gatekeepers wouldn't want to help. So it's like we just want to produce, but how do we end up with a good collection? How do we end up with this? So having friends who were then emerging and all that, I was like, why not? Let me just try with them. So when I pitched to her, she's like, yeah, we would want you to write for us, but if you could focus solely on ethical fashion designers. And to me, it's actually very good because ethical is like a lot of designers or a lot of brands now are fast fashion. Only a few are doing sustainable fashion or ethical. So I started doing. I'm like, oh wow, this is something that is really might take me far. Or wouldn't want to just even at some point be making money, but also want to make impact. So I would stick to it. So that's how I ended up writing, and
I
it's
love that.
been very good. It's been very good since.
I'm so happy to hear that. And do you know what I love? I love that you entered a certain career and then evolved and created opportunity for yourself, because I think that's something people underestimate, especially when you're new to an industry or you feel like you want more. How many people actually reach out and create that opportunity? It's almost like we wait for something to happen, right?
Right. It is. It
I love
is.
that. I love that. And also, you mentioned about how when there's new models and new talent in the industry, they don't know what they're doing. Sometimes they're a bit naive. What kind of things do you think is important to know when you're within this industry, whether you're writing in the fashion industry or trying to be a model or work behind the scenes? What kind of things do you need to know?
I think I'll take a separately model and also a writer, or maybe as a whole. For modeling, I kind of feel like I said earlier, it has to do with age and also you having a special, because everyone can literally model in a way. If I put a clothes on you and something, you
Really?
could.
Are you
But
sure?
there are some sort of special features, special things that you have to do as a model, where in terms of posing, in terms of having like you command what the camera, the moment a camera comes in front of you, within maybe 10 seconds, when they ask you to give like 50 poses, you can do it. So as a model, you need to also practice if this is what you want to do. The mirror is your friend. There's YouTube. There are people, predecessors who they really did it. And so you could even be better than them. You need to practice much more, look at things, what sort of modeling will fit you, because there are people who have nice cheekbone and everything, but maybe they're not really good with runway. Do you want to just be a commercial model? Do you want to be a fashion model where you're focused, so a runway model where you would want to be doing what? High fashion runway and also campaigns? Or would you just want to be maybe a hand model? Do you just want to be an actor? So in between that, there's like also categories under that. The truth is I'm not even a 6 full model. I'm very like 5'9", yeah. But I think personally for me, and I'm not sure if everyone can take this advice. I don't give up. That's one thing about me. So even in my industry, I had the naysayers and the no every now and then, because hey, you're too short, you're too skinny, you're that. But I was like, nah, I would want to be the one of the first model to come out from my country as one of the skinny models who broke out. And so when me and some few friends of ours, when we started that trend, and I realized that now even people down here are now realizing whenever I see him, he's a very good friend, Otawa Kwame, I'm sure you know him, one of our first Ghanaian model who worked for Louis Vuitton. When I saw him on the first time on the runway, I was so excited, because these are people back then, or when they also started, it was like, oh, you're too skinny, you're there. And the whole narrative now changed even in Ghana, especially where at first it was really like the buff people, like you have to be very, and I think maybe it cut across everywhere. So that was one thing that I really faced. Sometimes I was like, oh God, can I? So one way or the other, I was scouted by Shalom Mensah, and she introduced me to my manager, and she believed in me, and she's like, you don't have to, I mean, I get that, yeah, they have a standard height, but you have a special feature. I think now it's gone. You have a special feature, you can do something. So she would encourage me even when I wasn't like really even very confident in myself. Like she would tell me, you can do this. So I started doing my own personal shoot and all that. I mean, collabing. But another thing too is, as a model, regardless you want to be break even in the industry, you have to be very strategic. And that's one thing I think the new generation or these young ones tend to forget. They feel like, I'm in a hurry to make it, I'm in a hurry to break out and become very famous. But it's not just being famous, it's about impacting. You get to a point, you're not just a model, like your Instagram, your social media, your persona, it's someone's like someone literally see and like, oh my God, that's you. Like people say, I saw you on the runway, that sort of thing. So you also need to have a brand.
Yeah.
And so that was one thing I was trying so hard, like in as much as I was even doing the freebies, the free shoot and all that, I was very strategic on who I was working with, photographers, stylists, and all that. My friend is a designer also, so he most of the time came through for me. So we did it, and whenever we did a shoot, because I write, I would just put out something short and start looking for submission. I was making my own editorial submission. Some would pick it at the. So it was more like self PR, literally
Yeah.
everything. So it got to a point. It's like I built that sort of self PR brand for myself. So, oh wow, how come he's on this? I remember my first ever magazine was when my manager in Charlotte, when they took me to Cape Coast. We shot and it was featured on Suitcase magazine. So then it became like, oh wow, that you're on a mag that. Then I got a chance to do Mercedes Benz fashion week. We did a shoot and it was on a catalog that was shown in Germany. So gradually you could tell that in as much as I was very hungry and eager, I didn't want to be like, okay, I'm just doing every shoot so that nah. Because if you don't take care, you end up doing a whole lot of things to like, or because you want to be in quotes breakthrough, then by the time you realize people get tired of your face, brands realize, oh, this guy is everywhere, that sort of thing.
Everywhere, yeah. What is his brand and what is his
Yeah.
target? Yeah, I get
And
you.
also another thing too that was about it, I don't joke with my social media. I can do whatever, but when it comes to my social media, it's like literally my portfolio.
Yeah.
So when I post family, when I post friends, 2-3 days, I'll delete it. It's now that thanks to story, we hardly even post family, like our loved ones on our main page. It's more like stories and you're good to go. But first, it was just, you just have to post everything. So whenever even I post, I have to delete it because I didn't want to conflict people coming on my page like, what is this? So sometimes I go on people's page and I see the person say he or she says he's a model. There's so many different images of him and other people shout out, and I'm like, okay, what are you trying to sell? But if you have a style, if you have something that even on it you do, it gets to a point, one word, even out of 1,000, the word is be a lot. And I think it's a mantra that worked for me. I was like, I don't mind, even if it's going to take me 1,000 years, I would break even in this industry. Maybe I might not, I never had a chance to do the Paris Fashion Week, but I was happy that something I wrote, everything I wrote that I wanted to do. I remember I was like, oh my God, one day I'll work on South African Menswear Week. Everything happened for me. Yeah. So people feel like, oh, breaking through is getting, but one way, whatever that you set your mind to, everything I set my mind to now is really shaped me, held me. And now everything that I'm doing is also part because I got to meet so many great people. So I kind of feel as a model, as a writer, whatever that you do, you have to be very strategic. Read, research on your field that you want to do. You can't say you're a writer and you just, people are talking about things and you don't even know. Because as an editor or as a writer, if you are pitching ideas to editors, sometimes they know what they want already. So if you are not really smart about it, they just trash your email somewhere because there are tons of pitches coming through.
Yeah.
What would set you apart with your pitch? So also that when I started getting into it, I started reading much more. I'll go on LinkedIn and start doing research. I'll go on, like, I wanted to know what, it wouldn't just be writing, like I said earlier, I wouldn't just be writing, but basically more like impactful story. So I started using that niche. Okay, I'm doing, maybe Fashion Week story. Why don't I start doing profile story? Why don't I start doing stories, people who haven't yet been heard? So then I'm also switched to that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I can even just hear it from when you're talking, how you're thinking of absolutely everything. And I think people underestimate just how much you have to research when you're being creative. Creative isn't just ideas. Creative is also finding the right person to pitch your idea to. That is probably the hardest thing, no matter which industry you work in.
Mm-hmm. It is, honestly, because sometimes you don't even know what, you have to also find out what sort of publication will go for your story. There are some publications, maybe they don't even cover what you're doing. So if, let's say, imagine I'm sending an email to you and maybe you are the head of business. I mean, you trust my email. So you have to do all that research and know that, okay, this is a culture editor, this is a style editor, this is a business editor. Then you pitch your idea to, but you just don't sit there and just open anything thinking that, nah, it doesn't work that way.
But also, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the industry. People think that you're always going to be approached and given these opportunities. And one thing I love that you mentioned right from the beginning, no, you have to go out there and get those opportunities. And leading on from that, I wanted to ask you, is there any topic that you'd love to write about that you haven't had the chance to yet? I'm not stealing your ideas, Ekow, don't
No,
worry.
no, 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 no. I know. It's not even about that. I'm just thinking. I think it's very broad, and let me see. I'm thinking out
Your
loud.
time.
Let me see. I wouldn't call it topic, but something I've really loved to start. Like, I mean, I would want to document whether when I get funded, whether when I get a good publication, will be willing to fund it. Will be doing story on women in the northern region. Like, I kind of have this idea where I feel those people have a lot going on. They are like, in quotes, men. They do everything to survive in their country, and it looks like people don't really talk about them. So I had a trip. I went on a trip with my friends last year for Damba Festival. We were documenting for a publication, and so when we were there, I engaged some are into rice business, some are, you see, like maybe 60 years, 50-year woman on a bicycle, and it's like, wow. Yeah, so things like that. I think we don't really talk about stories like this. Like, also, I also want to document much more on there also, or unsung heroes in my country or even in Africa. And it looks like a lot of publications sometimes tend to be very trendy. They're just going what is happening. Okay, oh, we heard of this person is really popping. Let's just get a writer. It's not always about that. Sometimes there are people we could reach out to. So there are stories that I have, like a whole notebook where I have different page titles.
Yeah.
So I'm like, phew, and maybe you pitch. I mean, now the narratives has really changed. I hardly get no for pitches, but it's just about me being strategic. And I've not even been, I think I've been off writing for a month now because of production. Because also, I just don't want to just write anything. I also want to be very strategic as to what story I would want to put out there, because it's not just okay because right now. So I mean, thanks now. Maybe I have some great contact with a lot of editors because of my past articles, so I could go back to them. But that's not how I want. If I'm going back to, let's say, CNN, I'd want to have a story. If I'm going back to, let's say, Vogue, JQ, all these people, I would want to have like a very good story to write. But now the narrative have really changed where I get commissioned. Sometimes you be there and be like, hey, we want you to write a story on this person. Would you be able to? If the person is also in sync with what I do, then I'll just take it upon myself and just do it. If no, I'll just have a nice excuse and go like, maybe I'm not available or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think now that's where I've gotten to. So for me now, I'm moving on to more like a bigger spectrum of trying to do more impactful story, like stories that 10, 15 years to come, someone can just pick it up and make a research. Because the fun fact or the truth is, I get a lot of sometimes maybe DMs or emails are a bit rare, but like the emails I get are more of like foreigners. There was a time someone from the UK sent me and he was like, hey, my students are doing a thesis on African dance, and we saw one of your article. Thanks so much. So things like that really inspire them, like, oh wow, someone can just come back to you and pick up your story. I will go out and be like, oh, you did this story. It was a nice read. It was a nice article, your angle that you came from. So that is what I really want to hear, where it's not just having a byline. Oh, okay, I write for Vogue. Okay, I write for the no. It's about the story. Because trust me, now I could go to them and maybe one way or the other find that story to them, but I just don't want to. So even now, when someone reaches out to me, I sometimes get very unsolicited PR emails or right. And in my head, I'm like, I'm not a publicist because I'd love it. I've done some great stories on artists, which I'm not stopping, but I just don't wake up and be like, okay, I want to write on this artist, regardless of how even popular the artist should be.
Yeah.
Person should have a story that could also inspire people. So I'm like, personally, I'm very slow to things, but like I get things done. I'm like, sometimes I see things, I'm like, okay, I like how they're doing it. The next minute, then you see me tweaking or doing maybe different thing altogether, because I feel there's a lot we could tell from this continent and we are not telling. Yeah.
Yes, about that. There is so much we're not saying about that continent. I'm completely with you on that. And do you know how refreshing it is, Ekow, to hear this from someone? So, no disrespect to everyone hustling. It's not about that. But I think there's a lot of pressure to always look busy, and there's a lot of pressure to always look like, oh, I did this week. I did this yesterday. It's always about posting, and showing that you're doing a lot. And it's so refreshing to hear from you that you're very selective, because I don't feel everyone has that discipline to be like, no, I'm not going to do it, because being online means you need to be present all the time. So I honestly, I'm really taken back by that. I think that's so refreshing.
Yeah, I think I was even also, I think like that, even at some point, because there was a time you're like, okay, if you don't put that miss, it means you're not working. But I started going out of that, especially when I realized that I was doing more production. Like this year, I've done so many great projects, and some are out, some I don't know when they will release it. So I realized, I'm like, oh wow, I actually did all this, and it's not that deep. Like it's actually, you just need to chill and just keep on working hard. And it's not every night and then, okay, I did this, I did that. Now I've done projects when I see even some of the clients posting, they're eager for me posting. If I'm not in the right frame of mind, I don't even post, because not because maybe I have in excess, but also it's more like how feasible is it for me? It was just a client that came to me. Maybe it's not something that adds to my aesthetic. They just wanted my talent on their what
Yeah.
on that project, and which I've delivered, and what it's fine. I don't need to, it's not, I'm not obligated to post or no. And no, it doesn't even should sound like a disrespect, but it's basically more like I should post or I should do things that is in line with what I would really want to project out there. So yeah, it's been a ride, and I've actually learned a lot that I don't always need to post before it makes me feel like I'm relevant, I'm doing something. No, I don't really, honestly don't care. I'm focused much more on like the bigger projects, bigger things I'm trying to think through, that who I want to do this project. I'm looking for fans. I'm looking for a big company that will just say, you know what, we like this idea. That's like, because like I said earlier, there's so many things we can say, like we can tell from this continent. But a lot of us as emerging, so a lot of us sometimes it's either there's lack of fans support or all that. So now if you get a little bit of chance, leverage on that. I've been studying on projects, creative project management for the past 2 weeks. I'm almost done on LinkedIn. And so it's not like, okay, I'm just working, fine. I mean, the fact you're posting every now and then, that's fine. But the people that you have vying for the same bidding or whatnot, they also have some skill maybe you might not have. You also might have something that you might not have. So what sets you apart is your niche, how you go about things. Because I always feel, like I said earlier when we we're talking, that everyone can be a producer, but at the end of the day, when we tend to produce, what makes you different when you pitch? Whenever I pitch, whenever I pitch and they say yes, or whenever there's a project I'm doing, I end up even sometimes directing, sometimes like I think so many different talents are to go, because it's like, you know what is your story, so you know how you want it to be done.
Yeah.
So sometimes I even tend to be very, how do I call it, very difficult with my team. I get so emotional and sad, because I know what I'm looking for, and maybe the photographer might have a way of doing it, and I'm like, no, I get it, but this is how so because you have that sort of heart, because you also feel there's this bit of know-how in what you're doing. So it's not just like, okay, I can put, because at the end of the day, if it's production, I can put things together and just produce, but I really need to be very creative. You need to be strategic as to, like, for instance, if you come to me as a brand and you want to do a shoot, let's say, for instance, let's say you're Mercedes-Benz, you're Adidas, you're this, and you give me a brief, you said we should do a shoot in Ghana. I mean, yes, I could do that shoot, but I also have to even be very careful with brand integration, animal, like if like even with people I go out to reach out to, I can't just be maybe letting a model pose anyway and just be shooting. Yeah, I need to be very conscious about my environment.
Hmm.
When you go to a community, when you're done with a shoot, do you give them something? Or that like you have to factor that. So I always say if everyone can be a creative, but you have to be very, 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 very conscious to call yourself a creative, because you just don't create. Even before you put something out, you need to think through and all that. So yeah, I think now I've been very slow to things, and it's more like a learning process. I'm always learning. Whenever I do a shoot, I'm like, okay, today was 9/10, 8/10. I could have done this, they could have done that. Next I wouldn't do this. So I'm always learning, and I kind of feel I've not even gotten to the peak of my creativity and all that. So yeah, it's a gradual process, and yeah, I can't wait to share more. Yeah.
We can't wait to hear more. I was just going to say, is there anything planned or anything you're working on that we can look forward to?
Oh yes, that I'll say yes, a lot. There is a lot. Some I've done, some I'm yet to do, some, yeah. So there is a lot to come. Yeah. The future really looks very bright. I always say we just need to pray for good health and life. I mean, I don't know. That's the only thing we need. The rest will follow. Yeah.
Yeah, Ekow, thank you so much for your time. I can't tell you how refreshing you are. Honestly, you've also come into my life at a really weird time, because I'm literally in one of those moments where I'm like, I think I need to rethink my strategy and what I'm doing. It's so weird because all you said today is strategic,
I'm
strategic.
glad.
So
I'm
I'm
glad.
sitting here
Yeah.
like signs. So honestly, I can't thank you enough for your time. And it's so interesting to hear about the way you approach work. And honestly, we can't wait to see what comes out of you. I'm sure it's going to be great.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we had the time to speak and all that. I'm really sorry about earlier on, but yeah, I'm
It's
really
all good.
glad.
Honestly,
You
it's
can
all
reach
good.
out to me anytime, and yeah, I can't wait to do more with you guys. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And also, you were talking a lot about the continent. So obviously, I'm actually originally from North Africa. I'm from Egypt. So if ever
Oh wow.
something happens and you're like, I want to do something in Egypt, please hit me up, because there's so many untold stories that I would love. If there's anything we can do together, you just hit me
Sure,
up.
sure. I mean, Egypt is one of the country I would love to go. I think culture-wise, you guys really have it. And yeah, like I said, for me now, it's all about funding. Like if I get a million, I would want to like travel around the continent and do like great stories. So why not? Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Let's speak it into existence, and hopefully
Yeah.
God blesses us with those opportunities.
Okay. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Take care, Ekow. It was lovely to meet you.
Okay.
Sorry.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.